In early 1943, the Atlantic Ocean had become a deadly hunting ground. German U-boats prowled the convoy routes, sinking merchant vessels with ruthless efficiency. At that moment, the Allies faced one of the gravest crises of World War II. A group of American and British naval strategists realized that conventional convoy escorts were no longer sufficient. The losses were mounting and vital supplies were at risk of being severed. The United States Navy responded by organizing specialized hunter-killer groups, task forces designed not merely to protect convoys, but to seek out and destroy enemy submarines before they could strike. These were not ordinary fleets. They were composed of escort carriers carrying small squadrons of aircraft, accompanied by agile destroyers and destroyer escorts equipped with the latest anti-submarine weaponry. The concept was revolutionary. Take the fight to the German U-boats rather than waiting for them to attack. Intelligence played a pivotal role in this transformation. British codebreakers at Bletchley Park had successfully decrypted German communications through ultra-intelligence. For the first time, Allied commanders had insight into U-boat positions, patrol routes, and operational orders. This knowledge allowed hunter-killer groups to move with precision, intercepting submarines in the vast expanse of the North Atlantic. The synergy of intelligence, mobility, and firepower created a new form of warfare. Ships and aircraft could coordinate attacks with unprecedented speed, while commanders made real-time decisions based on decrypted signals. The planning and execution required careful attention to detail. Escort carriers, often converted from civilian ships, carried aircraft capable of spotting submarines on the surface or forcing them to dive, limiting their mobility. Destroyers and escorts, equipped with sonar and depth charges, coordinated attacks with these aircraft to maximize effectiveness. This method marked a clear departure from traditional naval strategy, demonstrating that technology and intelligence could decisively tip the balance of war. These hunter-killer groups became a symbol of innovation and determination, proving that the Allies could adapt to the evolving threat of German submarine warfare. The birth of hunter-killer groups transformed the Atlantic theater, introducing a proactive approach that challenged U-boat supremacy. It was the beginning of a shift that would eventually secure Allied control of the sea lanes and protect the lifeline to Europe. By mid-1943, technology had become the decisive factor in the Battle of the Atlantic. Hunter-killer groups depended on innovations that gave the Allies an edge over the previously unstoppable German U-boats. Centimeter-wave radar, a groundbreaking development, allowed aircraft and ships to detect submarines on the surface even in complete darkness or poor weather. Before this innovation, U-boats could surface at night with relative impunity, but radar detection now exposed them to immediate attack. High-frequency direction finding, known as HF, DF, or HFDUF, enabled Allied forces to intercept and locate German radio transmissions, revealing the positions of submarines that thought they were communicating secretly. These tools transformed the hunter-killer groups into a deadly network of intelligence-driven strikes. Acoustic torpedoes and improved depth charges amplified this technological advantage. Ships could now attack submerged U-boats with far greater accuracy. Aircraft from escort carriers could pinpoint targets and guide destroyers to strike with coordinated precision. This integration of technology and tactics allowed hunter-killer groups to conduct offensive operations rather than merely defending convoys. The Allies could track, pursue, and destroy submarines in ways that had previously been impossible, shifting the strategic balance of the Atlantic. The impact of these innovations was profound. For the first time, German commanders faced the prospect of constant vulnerability both above and below the waves. Submarine attacks that once occurred with near-total surprise became increasingly risky. The psychological effect on U-boat crews was severe. They had to contend with a relentless enemy equipped with tools that could detect their movements at long range. Meanwhile, Allied sailors and pilots gained confidence as they experienced the effectiveness of these new technologies. Every successful interception reinforced the concept that innovation could overcome the tactical advantage that German submarines had previously enjoyed. The successive hunter-killer groups demonstrated the power of combining intelligence and technology with disciplined strategy. Radar, HF, DF, and advanced weaponry were not just instruments of war, they were force multipliers that allowed smaller, more agile forces to dominate a vast ocean battlefield. The balance of power in the Atlantic was shifting, and German U-boat commanders were beginning to realize that their previous methods of unrestricted submarine warfare were no longer sufficient. The tide of the battle was changing, and the Allies were taking the fight directly to the enemy with unprecedented efficiency and lethality. Life aboard a German U-boat was a grueling test of endurance and courage. Submariners endured extreme conditions in tight, claustrophobic quarters, often submerged for days on end. Fuel limitations dictated operational range, and battery power restricted underwater movement. Communication was a constant vulnerability, as transmissions could be intercepted by Allied high-frequency direction finding, revealing positions to hunter-killer groups. Crew members faced not only the dangers of depth charge attacks and aerial bombings, but also the psychological strain of knowing that at any moment, detection could mean death. U-boat missions required meticulous coordination, yet the constant pressure and advancing Allied technology increasingly undermined their effectiveness. On the other side of the Atlantic, Allied hunter-killer groups executed meticulously planned operations. Escort carriers launched aircraft capable of scouting vast stretches of ocean, forcing U-boats to remain submerged and limiting their speed. Destroyers and destroyer escorts employed sonar to detect underwater targets and launched coordinated depth charge attacks. Search patterns were carefully designed to cover all possible escape routes, and communication between ships and aircraft ensured real-time coordination. Intelligence from ultra-decryption informed every decision, allowing commanders to anticipate U-boat movements and strike with precision. Key moments demonstrated the decisive impact of intelligence and timing. In one operation, a hunter-killer group detected a Wolfpack poised to intercept an Allied convoy. Aircraft located a surface submarine and guided destroyers to the target. Depth charges forced the U-boat to surface, where it was captured and later sunk. Such encounters highlighted how technology, tactics, and intelligence combined to neutralize the once dreaded threat of German submarines. Each success reinforced the effectiveness of the hunter-killer strategy, showing that Allied forces could now control the battle at sea rather than react defensively. The contrast between the two sides could not have been starker. U-boat crews struggled against ever-tightening Allied pressure, living under constant threat and facing mechanical limitations that compromised their mission. Meanwhile, Allied sailors and aviators operated with superior intelligence and technological advantage, executing coordinated maneuvers that often left German submarines with no viable escape. The relentless pressure applied by hunter-killer groups turned the tables in the Atlantic, proving that well-coordinated operations, combined with innovation and courage, could overcome even the most experienced and deadly enemy. By mid-1943, the Allied hunter-killer groups had begun to fundamentally change the dynamics of the Battle of the Atlantic. German U-boat commanders, who had once regarded the Atlantic as a near-uncontested hunting ground, were facing losses that forced a re-evaluation of their strategies. Submarine attrition increased dramatically as coordinated attacks, informed by ultra-intelligence and executed with advanced technology, claimed more U-boats than ever before. The myth of U-boat invincibility was shattered, and the German Kriegsmarine was confronted with a new reality. The Atlantic was no longer safe for their submarines. The strategic impact of these operations extended far beyond individual encounters. With U-boats increasingly hunted rather than hunters, vital supply lines from North America to Europe remained largely intact. This ensured the steady flow of troops, weapons, and essential materials that were critical for Allied offensives across multiple theaters. The success of hunter-killer groups demonstrated the effectiveness of combining intelligence, innovation, and proactive tactics to dominate a previously uncontested domain. German commanders were forced to adapt, eventually restricting U-boat operations and developing countermeasures, but by then, the balance had decisively shifted. The courage and coordination of Allied crews were central to this transformation. Sailors aboard destroyers and destroyer escorts executed complex maneuvers under extreme conditions, often engaging enemy submarines in high-risk encounters. Pilots operating from escort carriers patrolled vast ocean expanses, scanning for subtle signs of U-boat activity and directing surface vessels toward targets. Every successful engagement underscored the importance of intelligence-driven strategy and the decisive role of technology in modern naval warfare. Together, these elements demonstrated that a well-organized, innovative force could overcome even the most formidable threats at sea. By the end of 1943, the Atlantic had shifted from a perilous battlefield dominated by U-boats to a theater in which Allied hunter-killer groups could project power and control. The operations proved that decisive action, guided by accurate intelligence and amplified by technological innovation, could turn the tide of war. These successes did not merely protect convoys. They laid the foundation for the Allied advance into Europe, contributing directly to the eventual victory over Germany. The legacy of the hunter-killer groups remains a testament to strategic ingenuity, technological adaptation, and the relentless courage of those who took the fight to the enemy across the vast and unforgiving Atlantic Ocean.